Ting is a mobile virtual network operator here in the United States, and they ask an important question. What is the problem with the U.S. mobile phone industry? What's the biggest problem? I can summarize it in one word, and it's called Carterfone. This is a thing that occurred back in the 70s where people were trying to connect devices to AT&T's landline network, and they were having issues with that because AT&T was essentially denying them the right to do this, and the FCC stepped in and said, yeah, you need to allow this. As long as it's technically capable of connecting to the network, then it should be able to connect. Well, unfortunately, that premise has not applied to cell phones. And so I have an iPhone 5S here that I purchased from AT&T. And technically, this phone has the capability to support every single network in the U.S. and many networks throughout the world. This phone, there's no technical limitation to the networks it can connect to. The networks I can connect it to are controlled by AT&T and to an extent Apple. And also the other carriers. So even if I unlock the iPhone, which of course I can do, and AT&T will do it, or I can go do it on the gray market, but I cannot use this AT&T iPhone on Sprint or Verizon. It's not a technical issue because the phone supports it. What's keeping it from using that is Sprint and Verizon, and therefore I can't use it on Ting. And Ting has a different problem, right? Is that Sprint is restricting what handsets they can use on their service, and so the newer iPhones cannot be used on Ting. Only some older ones can be used with Ting, and so that restricts the competition. And so it's very simple. I cannot make a choice about the handset I want to use without also making a choice about the network. So those choices are tied together. And once those choices are untied and I can choose the handset I want on the carrier I want, then I think we're going to see some real competition. And there's been some changes to debundle the handset from the service, but it needs to go farther. We need to see Carterfone implemented on wireless networks. I need to be able to choose the handset I want independently from the service I use it on. And then I won't have to be buying handsets all the time, because that means if I want to switch carriers, I have to buy a new handset. And in some cases you have to do that anyway, because like, for example, the Nokia Lumia 520 I have, even though I've unlocked it, again, it doesn't support GSM, so it doesn't support CDMA, so I couldn't use it on Sprint or Verizon even if I wanted to. But Nokia could have built a version that supported CDMA, but there's no reason for them to do that. So they've got a couple of Nokia's got a couple of Windows Phone handsets on Verizon and I don't think on Sprint yet, but they're unique to them because there's no reason for them to build a handset with both technologies in it, because let's face it, I can't buy that handset and use it worldwide. I can only use it on Verizon. So what's the point, right? And I think that's what's got to change. We need to get away from the handset being tied to the service. And yeah, there's I know there's some technical issues of making all of that happen, but apparently Apple has solved it. And if Apple can solve it, well, so can everybody else. But the carriers have to step up and allow this to happen. And that's what the problem is right now with service in the United States. And until that changes, all this other stuff that's going on is it's just a bunch of hooey, and things aren't really going to change that much. We're not going to see real competition, and unfortunately, services like Ting that I think are doing a good job of lowering the cost for consumers, they're not going to get widespread adoption because we're limited in handset choice, and of course the Sprint's network is perhaps not the best either. But again, this is the challenge we have, and until we can get away from handsets tied to service, I think we're going to be we're going to be in bad shape. That's what needs to change, and that one word again is Carterfone, and we need to get that on our wireless networks in the U.S.